Okay, so this is going to be the Nuke CT and T side position guide, so let's get into it. So starting off for the Nuke T side, we're going to start with the outside player. So your outside player is your main kind of lurker person on this map, and you want to be putting your best rifler that you've got on your team in this position. Now, before I go into like the details of the position and what some of the things you might do, it's important to know that your outside player on the Nuke T side is basically the most important role on the entire side of Nuke. He basically will dictate whether your T side is going to be a success or going to be a complete failure. The reason it's so powerful is because you need to deny or confuse the CTs to the presence and the whereabouts of your outside player at all times. So you're mainly going to be using the cross smokes, obviously there's like something like this, or the L block smokes where it's deeper, like in the gaps. I just throwing them on the fly, so maybe not so good. But you want to be using these smokes to get your outside player into numerous different positions. So one of them might be, just to get him across to secret. Now you might think, oh, that's a bit simple, but the reason your outside player can just to get into secret is because it causes the CTs to not know, one, about just where your outside lurk player is, but also how many people are down. Is there, all 5 players crossing at the red crate? Is there only 1? Is there 2? Is there 3? So it forces the CTs to rotate a guy to lower, or to at least drop one like down towards secret here. So it means the top site and the A site is weaker. It also means your AWPer, he's not going to be playing in these garage positions so close up, because this rifle guy could be, lurking around to kill him, so he has to play further back. So the main job of your outside player is to keep the CTs guessing about your position, but also forcing the CTs to rotate based off just your information and your position alone. So some rounds you might just be sitting Africa and waiting for contact. Other rounds you might be throwing like an L block and trying to lurk in toward garage. Maybe going through credit or maybe lurking through main. Your job as this outside player is to try and to be finding constant impact. If that's somehow killing a rotating or out of position CT player, if that's drawing utility from the CTs to stop your push down secret, if that's forcing either a vent guy to rotate based on your sounds going down secret, or a guy in garage to have to sit in the back corner of garage and be isolated from his team. So this is one of the most important positions on the map. So if you're doing this, you need to be comfortable with the position pressure that is in. Because simply, if you're an outside player, what you can't do is you can't just sit Africa every round, or maybe even like just sit here behind the smokes and wait and then try and take a fight. Because you need to be actively taking space away from the CTs and force them out of position, so your other players across the map can do something. So the best player in the world at doing this is Electronic. If you want any more information on how this player kind of acts on Nuke, then I'd recommend going to watch an Electronic demo. Rain is also someone else who has recently become very good at doing this role. Okay, so then we get to the Roma player. Now, the Roma player on this map, as I've talked about before, the Roma player is just kind of going where the IGL calls the default. So sometimes if you're just doing a normal default, so the meta currently on Nuke is to play a 4-1 default or a 1-4 default. So that's either 4 people in lobby and just your outside lurk, or you leave 1 person in lobby and have 4 people outside. So your Roma is just going along with the pack. So if it's a 4-1, if it's an inside default, you're going toward inside. If it's an outside default, you're going to go be toward outside. And the role of him then is just to help support the other players around. It might be setting up the AWP for a pick, or just doing what your IGL tells you to. So I've covered the Roma role in other videos, and I'll cover it further down the line, but that's basically the next position on T-side Nuke. So of course then we come to your AWP player. Now, Nuke is another one on the T side where you might see your AWPer picking up a rifle commonly. This is very dependent, obviously, if you're doing a lot of either outside plays, so you're doing a lot of 1-4 defaults, you're going outside heavy, where there's a lot of smokes involved and you're trying to get down to the B site. It's better the AWPer take a rifle because he's going to have a lot more close counter engagements. You'll see people like Simple, Zyru, Device, like all these guys are comfortable using the rifle on outside, or like on outside and lobby and Nuke. So don't be afraid to do that if you're the AWPer and you're not really feeling the AWP picks. If you're able to get some AWP picks, obviously you might be trying to go outside. Now, you're only going outside if your IGL is called. It's not a 4-1 default. You don't want to be going outside and affecting the lurkers, the outside smokes. The only time when you might do something like this is if the outsider is called. Your outside lurk, for example, is called, their AWPer is always doing this when the smokes go down. You might be able to come up on silo, maybe pick him here. Other than that, your Lorper mainly will be going toward the lobby kind of area. Now he's either going to be set up towards some ramp picks, maybe going for some hut pick or a door pick. But most commonly, he'd just be coming in here when the door's broken off, as I'll show you now. And he might be just holding this kind of angle to see if anyone... Okay, now we're on to one of the first 2 lobby players. This guy is going to be... His focus is going to be on Squeaky, or the door. So, obviously, at the beginning of the round a lot, he's going to be throwing the nade smoke combo to just fake out some door presence. Now, the role of this guy's job, again, is mainly 2 things. So, one is to maybe give the impression that he could, or someone could have, got down the vent. Now, it's not important if you do actually get down the vent. It's giving the CTs the idea that someone could have got down the vent. Now, why this is important, again, is similar to the outside player, is if you're causing presence outside and there's a lurk smoke down door, this forces a hut player to stay here and watch the door, because he can't leave this angle, because at any time, you could walk out and slip down the vent or walk out onto A. And it means this guy can't drop down the vent, because he can't do this kind of move because you're playing on Squeaky. So that means if this guy, on the CTs, is forced to play top hut, and watch the door, maybe he's second vent and he's forced to just hold these angles, it means that now, if you've got a good outside lurk player, the CTs have to rotate another guy down to lower in a different way. So that might be by the ramp guy dropping, and now the AWPer is stuck ramp. So I know it's kind of hard to visualize and understand, but you should be starting to see, just with these positions we've gone over already, how the rotations start to work and how you're meant to toy with them on the T side. So if they're dropping vent early on in the round, you might see your Squeaky guy, molly down the vent quite a lot to stop that early rotate. But your Squeaky guy, most likely, is going to be the guy trying to, like I said, maybe trying to find this pick at the beginning of the round, and listening for rotations on A. So it's very important that he's very, very vocal, like everyone on this T side of Nuke, saying about the rotations, what's happening, so he can find the right time. Maybe he does slip out, maybe this guy's not here, maybe he gets a kill on site, gets a kill somewhere, and opens up this A site for the team. Other than that, he's probably going to be the guy entering out Squeaky when the time comes to it. Okay, and the final position on the T side of Nuke is just going to be your general lobby player. So your general lobby player's role is to look after the hut and ramp areas. So hut obviously is pretty self-explanatory. You might want to just sit yourself up in these kind of angles here, like pre-aiming here, and wait for someone to walk into you to get an easy kill. You might be putting early pressure toward hut. That might be, by flashing out the door, smoking the molly, or, throwing one of these flashes if you want a good flash. Blinds here. That's in my Nuke utility video if you haven't seen it. Or you might be going toward the ramp early on. You might be throwing flashes. You might be just trying to get info about where this ramp player is. So, obviously a great piece of info for you to get. You might throw a flashbang across, like so. It lands, blinds the AWPer. And now, for instance, the AWPer or another AWP is in play on the ramp. So even getting info like that just off your flashbang is huge for the IGL. Because since maybe they don't have the economy to run double AWP, the ramp player, off some jiggles, maybe off a flash or a util, you hear an AWP shot. You now know that the AWPer is playing on ramp, which suggests they've dropped one to B and it's the ramp player, which means there could be a gap somewhere for your IGL to exploit. So now, doing a topside execute is huge, because especially if your door lurk is doing it right, there's one top hut, and this other guy's going to be the A anchor. So you see how now, just using util and getting information on Nuke, that should all tie together. I'll do a more detailed video on Nuke rotations in the future if it's something that would be requested. But that's the end of the T-side portion of the Nuke position, so now we'll get into CT. Okay, so I'm going to go from right to left on the CT side, so we're going to start off with your anchor player. So we're going to start off with your ramp player. So the ramp player, again, is a really important role on Nuke, because you're the only person even responsible for this part of the map. So obviously at the beginning of the round you want to be throwing a molly. Molly always, because then if they run through they're going to have to smoke to put it out, and if they run through they're going to take some damage. Now you want to play a numerous different positions on the ramp to try and keep off the guys from pre-firing you out of ramp. And your main job is to stay alive as a ramp player. You don't want to be taking fights. So say you stay here, you get one, and then you just wait in the same position, because you're most likely going to be traded, and now the whole ramp room is lost. The best thing you can do is kill, get one, drop, throw a Molotov on your way down, and retreat to the B site. And at this point you want to be shouting for rotates, mainly from your AWPer if he's coming from hell, and staying alive and taking a ratty angle on the B site. So also on the ramp players, it's also important that you're listening to all the comms in the team, because let's say the main one of the outside players or your AWPer is saying that they could be down secret, and one of the guys on the A site can't drop. You need to be the person to drop. Don't just think, oh, there might be a guy ramp so I can't go down. You need to be like, okay, I'm dropping. I need to be shouting your AWPer to come and rotate or take hell. So that's important there. So that's the ramp player. There's numerous videos on YouTube of like how players play ramp properly and, you know, stuff like that. So if you're a ramp player and you like the position, then make sure you watch one of those. But it's a very like solo anchor spot on this map. And then speaking of anchors, we get onto the A anchor. So the A anchor again is the guy, you know, you want to be throwing the, you know, the hut Molotov at the beginning of the round, something like that. The good hut molly, because it goes into the hut as much as possible. Then you want to be coming down onto the A site, and you want to be playing, you know, behind the silos and just anchoring the A site. Like I've gone over a lot of anchors before, you just want to be staying alive and using your util effectively and trying to multi-frag when they do execute. So again, as the anchor, you've got numerous different positions that you can play on the A site. So you could be playing behind the silos, you could be playing an off-angled site, you could be playing on Mustang, you could be playing up here on the rafter, you could be playing up here, you could be playing in lots of different spots. Remember this little spot here, it's cool. If you just crouch down here, you can get in this corner here. And you can, you know, watch the hut. You can be playing, you know, close to the hut like this. But there's loads of different positions that you can play on the site like this. Sometimes you might even be top hut to try and anchor down the A site. Now, the important thing is the A anchor for the A anchor that you should know is you're in charge of the A site. So you're going to be the site leader most likely because you can see the things going on. And you need to keep to this rule at all times. You need to always have 2 players on the A site itself. You can never have only one person. This is because as soon as you only have one person on the A site, it makes it incredibly easy for the T's to execute on A. Because if you think, Nuke is unlike any map, if you think how close the T's can actually be to the site, before you know without execute, you know, the T's can get to the A site from here, you know, if you count, 1, 2, 3, and they're on the site. So it's kind of like, there's no other map like it in that sense, so you always need to have 2 people on A. So let's say you're the A anchor, I'll give you a quick example, and they do some stuff outside, so your guy needs to drop vent. You need to be now shouting for your outside player, or maybe the AWPer at least, to come up to heaven, or someone to support you on A site, so you have a 2-man hold here. You've always got to have 2 on A at all times on A, just remember that, and you'll lose a lot less pugs on Nuke. And team games on Nuke. Okay, then we come to the second A player, which is the A main / A door player. So the A door player obviously wants to be throwing the door molly at the start of each round, like this. The good door molly. Again, the reason for that is it spreads as much as possible out the side. So, as the name suggests, this player is in charge of any T's that might want to come through the door or split in through main later on in the round. So they want to be working, you know, in duo with the A player to be in good, the A anchor player to be in good crossfires on the site, and be using their util effectively to cut off the door player. It's also really important that this player is very vocal about the things he's hearing and the rotations and where they could be. This is because if they do a vent dive, you need to be calling that there's, you know, there could be, is there 1, 2, 3 down? You don't just want to shout vent dive, because that gives the impression to your team that, you know, all 5 players are down. So you might not exactly guess the number, but it's best that you say, I think like minimum 2 are down. Let's say you hear 2 down and you're not sure how many more. It's best you say minimum 2 down, because then, for example, the ramp player, he doesn't just insta drop because there could be a guy lurking ramp, as an example. It's also important that you're vocal, is because you can most commonly, in this position, are going to hear if players are doing stuff like this, or dropping into Africa, or jumping onto silo. So you need to be the one being vocal about these kind of plays, because you're the most likely person to hear them. But other than that, it's just important that you're staying on the A site. If you are dropping down the vent, that's your rotate. If they go to B, then you're doing it and calling it to your team that you're doing it, so they can replace your position. The only other thing you might want to do is, if you know there are a lot outside and they've taken outside control, maybe you've lost a man, you want to start double pushing lobby with your A anchor. This is because you want to take A lobby control off the T's if they've got outside or ramp control, so that you've got a different angle to hold A from. If you don't do this, if you imagine they've taken outside, you're now likely... The A hit could come in from main, it could come in from door, it could come in from hut or heaven. So if you don't take the lobby position, like you're screwed basically, because they come all the way around you. So if you think you're holding 2 angles, hut and door to start with, if they take outside, you've got 4, so you want to push into lobby, so then you've only got 2 different angles to work with, if that makes sense. Okay, and then we come on to the outside player. So The outside player on this map is the rifler. Again, it's one of your best riflers on the team. So his job is basically to be almost in a 1v1 battle with the outside lurker that I experienced earlier. So it's all about catching this guy off, you know, and getting info about the smokes and what the T's are doing outside. So a lot of times they'll either be, you know, your default cross smokes or an L block. So it's about trying to play around these smokes and play in positions you can to understand the information, the real information that you can get. So not just they've done L block and shouting that out, because yes, it's important for your team to know that, but if you don't say any numbers behind it or how many people they might be doing, like how many might be down, you're not getting great info for your team. So most of the time the rifler is going to be the outside player is going to either be playing somewhere like back garage, they might be playing just on the edge of main, they might be playing at the blue box here, or they might make a run to secret at the start of the round, or they might go the ramp play, and just waiting and trying to outmaneuver and outplay this outside lurker that I said before. So you can use their util effectively at the beginning of the round to stop some pushes. That might be doing the Molotov from spawn to here, it might be just, you know, nading back, it might be using flashes, it might be using a smoke, it could be setting up the AWPer for some kind of outside pick, that's important as well. But overall, this outside player is all about trying to understand what the true intention of the utility that the T's have thrown to give the information to the A site players in the AWPer, so the AWPer's in the best position possible if a hit comes in. Okay, now we've got the AWP role on the CT side of Nuke. So the AWPer on the CT side of Nuke is the most important role by far, because he's basically in control of everything from secret all the way over to ramp. So it's very important as the AWPer that you're incredibly mobile on the CT side of Nuke. You don't want to be just always coming outside and posting up in garage and playing these kind of angles, because you're leaving the other half of the map completely empty, and you're going to really struggle to play well on Nuke if you're always just outside here. You want to be mixing up your position and listening to your team so you know where to be at the right time. So you're the first guy that's going to rotate toward ramp if this ramp guy drops. So let's say the ramp guy drops and be under pressure, and right, you want to be already around this hell position, maybe back on the stairs holding outside, something like this. You don't want to be stuck all the way over here, like, you know, in garage when there's a ramp player shouting for help, because by the time you get there, you're going to be so late that the T's would have already got ramp and you've probably lost a round. So it's important that you're mobile and you're reacting to your team's information that you're getting, and, you know, the team's info or kills they're getting. So the T side, or the CT AWPer's role on Nuke is very complex. It's hard to explain in a short amount of time, but it's all about being very versatile and being in the right place at the right time as the AWPer. So your role ranges everywhere from garage to ramp. So imagine a straight line kind of somewhere across here, like this. Like imagine all the way across here, like so. You're in control of you should be always behind this kind of red line and taking all loads of different angles to try and catch out T's from overextending, because there's a lot of really great long range angles where the AWPer is very effective against it. And remember, if you are the AWPer and you are committing to A site, maybe on a round you drop down, you can always, if you've still got two players on A, you can always ask for yourself to be boosted back up to Mustang and rotate off. Okay, that's going to be the end of the CT and T side Nuke position guide. Hope you found it useful and you're starting to understand a bit more about the different positions that are meant to be played on Nuke.